Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to The Big Question live on Ahlulbayt TV. We're discussing the BBC's new sitcom Citizen Khan. Is it a comedy or indeed is it a mockery? Delighted this evening to be joined by the producer and journalist Sakina Datoo. Sakina Datoo, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, one of the questions is, should Muslims enjoy the comedy? It's a sitcom, it's something that needs to be celebrated. It shows cultural diversity, or rather, is it blasphemous, is it derogatory, and is it worthy of condemnation? Before we engage in our discussion, as ever, we welcome your calls, 02034 117 842. Did you watch the comedy? Did you laugh? Or were you appalled by what you saw? But for those of you that may not be familiar with Citizen Khan, that particular sitcom, let's watch a few clips from the show so that we can be familiar with it.
Yeah, best known as a BBC radio and television presenter, Adil has taken his Brummy childhood as inspiration. Lindsay Doyle joined him for a trip down memory lane.
Welcome to Sparkhill, Birmingham, the capital of British Pakistan.
Meet Citizen Khan, a self-proclaimed Muslim community leader, big-hearted, loud-mouthed, tight-fisted, but ultimately lovable. Created by Birmingham-born radio and television presenter Adil Ray, inspired by people he met growing up.
As a child, I remember being in the back of my mum's Datsun Cherry, sitting in the back of her car in my shorts on her PVC seat, sunny day, and she's inside like a butcher's shop getting halal meat. And I'm just sat in the back and I'm probably just sort of watched people and studied people, and I think actually that's, in a really bizarre way, that's when I probably started making mental notes for what is now my character, Mr. Khan, you know.
The former Handsworth Grammar School boy began his career in commercial radio before becoming a presenter on BBC Asian Network, broadcasting from the mailbox in Birmingham. He's appeared on Midlands Today and Inside Out, but playing Mr. Khan on television is a whole new departure.
It is my big day, Dad.
More like big 4 days. Why do our weddings have to take so long? Maybe we should have an English wedding. 20 minutes in registry office, cucumber sandwich, cup of tea, thank you for coming, bye-bye.
I was filming a scene, suddenly I remembered just being in my mum's car at the same time 30 years ago, and it's just the weirdest thing ever that, you know, obviously you'd never have thought in a million years that you'd be doing that, but I just think it's a sign to everyone really that if you have a dream and if you really want to do something, it can happen, it really can happen.
Citizen Khan's comedy mostly takes place in the family home in Sparkhill and the mosque. He's a character Adil created initially for BBC Asian Network. Now writers involved with Goodness Gracious Me have joined him on the new sitcom.
You know, anybody who's worked with me knows I'm a bit of a control freak, so initially when I first started, I was like, no, I don't want to work with them, this is my thing. You know, why do I want to do that? But the moment I sat with these guys, you realise why they're utterly brilliant, and they have a real good eye for how you can take something that's, you know, Asian or British Asian and take it into the mainstream.
And where's he going to watch the first episode? At home with Mum and Dad in Birmingham. Lindsay Doyle, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
There we are, and welcome back. So what did you think of the sitcom? 02034 117 842. What did you think of the clip that you saw just a moment ago? Were you offended? Were you petrified? Were you disgusted? Or were you entertained? Sakina Datoo, which of those would apply to you?
I think it's become obviously a very controversial sitcom.
700 Ofcom complaints.
Yes. I wouldn't say it's offensive. I think that's a very strong word. I would say that there were bits in it that I found annoying. Right. There were some bits which I did think they were funny, a few, and a few which I thought were probably, you know, not very appropriate. But generally, I mean, I think there are different things. There is obviously the whole idea of Islam, how it is portrayed. Yeah. But then there's the whole question of the Asian culture, you know. So there are two things we're really talking about here. And you have to decide what you find offensive. Is it the Islamic component that you find offensive for the people who have complained? Or is it more the Asian culture?
Do you feel the 700 complaints that the BBC received in relation to the sitcom were justified?
Obviously,
the furor that the people were really agitated by it. I mean, it started with 200, it very quickly hit 700.
I really think, I mean, it depends on who those people are, and it's very subjective to say lots of people. I mean, again, if you look at how many people watch that show, the ratings are quite high. 700 people. It is a sitcom. It is addressing an Asian community which is not often in the mainstream, in a comedy role in particular. It's addressing a Muslim community, again, not very popular. So you are bound to have people who are going to be offended. I think there were bits in it that I thought were not very appropriate. Sure. Especially if you look at the second episode, the whole concept of the grandmother who is praying constantly, and there's a mockery of her constantly praying. I think that was a bit off the cuff, because I think both in Islamic point of view and culturally, we tend to view the act of older people praying more to be a very positive role, and it's often seen as something which we welcome, because we believe that those are the prayers. So I found that a bit, I know it's a comedy and the whole idea is to make it funny, but I think that did not sit very well with me.
I mean, so that was episode 2, and then I suppose many reviews have said that episode 1 was far more superior to episode 2. Having said that, episode 1 was also far more controversial when you compare it to episode 2. I mean, tell us about some of the controversies within episode 1 that you found annoying. But before you do that, we've got a phone call, so let's take that call. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you for calling in. So, did you watch Citizen Khan?
Yeah, I did. I got to see the second episode.
Right. And how did you find it?
Well, at one point, it was okay. It's a bit funny, but I think it got to a point where the Islamic side of it, they were getting a bit carried away. I thought it was quite offensive. Like, sister was saying the scene with the grandmother praying. I think that wasn't necessary, to be honest.
Okay.
And then pulling the masala around and that. I got a bit upset watching that.
Sure. And what about the clip that we just saw? Was there anything from that clip that related to episode 1 that you found to be...
Sorry, I've just joined you.
You've just joined. How unfortunate. Never mind. Well, all right. So, I mean, but were you actually offended by it? I mean, that's a very strong word. Were you offended, or were you just a bit irritated, a bit annoyed? Or were you seriously sort of offended by it?
To be honest, it depends. Basically, some people get offended because some people that are practicing Muslims, I think most of the people that are practicing will find it offensive, because praying is something serious. You're praying towards Allah. It shouldn't be mocked or anything.
Sure.
Do you understand what I mean? And the cultural side of the program is fine. I'm not offended with that, because we have different cultures that should be basically shown on television, and other people should be aware of. But when it comes to the religious side, I think you should take a step back and really think about what you're going to portray to the whole of the UK, to whoever's watching.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for your feedback and indeed your call. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
They also were you offended? Because when they were offended, that's a pretty strong statement.
I wasn't offended, because for me, the way I see it is that I don't think they particularly went out to offend Muslims, because there have been shows, there have been comedy shows that have addressed Christianity or any other religion, and they've made mockery of it. No, I don't think they were making mockery of it. I think what it is look, there is this space that we haven't had as Muslims, and specifically I think as Muslims, the complaint always is that the image of Muslims in the mainstream media, in the Western media, is always terror related, always terrorist. So it's positive sometimes to laugh at ourselves, to see people portrayed in a lighter manner, that the home lives are also funny. We have things that we do. For example, that scene the sister was talking about of turning the musalla, I actually found it funny. I didn't think it was offensive, because you know what, that happens. We get the Qibla wrong and somebody corrects you. What I did find offensive was that constant, her constantly going around with the prayer mat, and then making a mockery of that concept of the old woman, sort of meaning that because she's so old, she's not in her senses, so all she can do is pray. And prayer is not really in that light. What I found, the first episode, we were talking about the first episode, I think the scene that most people have complained about is the one where the young girl, who is heavily made up, in a hijab, which is not real, and then when the father walks in, she covers herself and starts listening.
So in essence, she's looking at the magazine.
Yes.
We saw it. We saw a clip. And she's looking at the magazine, and the father walks in, and she puts the magazine to one side. She puts a scarf on, and she then proceeds to very passionately read the Quran. But we've got another call. So before we get to that, it's good that we've nonetheless painted the scenario. But let's take that call. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Jaffar. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are yourself? Thank you for calling in.
I'm fine. Look, I've just come in from work. I'm from Newcastle upon Tyne.
Yes.
I think it's this whole thing. I think you're taking it a bit seriously. I think it's. I mean, it is a comedy, and it's. I don't think it's offensive. It's only offensive if you a bit narrow-mindedness.
Right.
But I just wanted to share that with you. And the other thing as well is, if you look at from an Ahlulbayt point of view, you know, mashallah, our imams did have a sense of humour, you know.
Yes, but I mean, when you say it's narrow-minded, don't you think that, you know, that is a bit far-fetched in the sense that, you know, there was a mockery of prayer. I mean, here's this elderly lady running around the house with a prayer mat, causing a bit of havoc, doesn't even know where the Qibla is. And there was a suggestion that she's simply praying for the sake of praying as opposed to praying for any sort of spiritual benefit. I mean, that was a mockery, don't you think?
Yeah, I understand the mockery part, but we've got to look at the concept of the programme. It's not a serious documentary, it's not a drama, they're not claiming to, you know, do anything which is, shall we say, from their sources correct. It's a comedy, it's a half-an-hour comedy, it's light. I mean, to be quite honest, I watched it probably about 10, 15 minutes of it. And, you know, it's a comedy, and the comedy is to make maybe not everybody laugh, but some people...
All right, let's just very quickly bring Sakina Datoo. Sakina Datoo, do you agree?
I don't agree. I mean, I do agree to a large extent that we should be able to laugh at these things. You know, it is a comedy and we should understand that. But I think we should not laugh to the point that we completely close our eyes and say, you know, it's a comedy, therefore anything goes. I don't think to that extent.
Let's finish and then we'll get to you very shortly. Right. Okay,
but that's all I've got to say. Look, I'm going to get ready for my press. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Oh, well, never mind.
So, I mean, I do understand his point, yes. And I think he does have a point that, you know, we should not be oversensitive, because some Muslims, honestly, I think from the reaction that I've read on the net and on blogs, we are oversensitive sometimes, you know, and I was coming to that on the first scene where I think the whole episode of the Quran, you know, I actually didn't find it offensive at all, because I think I've seen scenes like that in Indian dramas, you know, produced in India by the Hindu producers, and then instead of Quran, it's the Gita that they are reading. So obviously they don't think that's offensive, because that is the nature of young people, you know. When a father walks in, and in all our cultures, Islamic culture in particular, that's quite common, you know, you would be reading something, and not only father, any elderly person you would cover. We've gone to school, we've all gone to school with, you know,
but would it be to this? I mean, would it be to this extent, Sakina Datoo, in the sense that she hasn't got a hijab on, I suppose, and they have tried to be ultra in their sort of portrayal, because she's wearing hijab in the house to start with, and then she's reading a magazine, and as I say, she just suddenly puts her hijab on, starts reading the Quran, and starts doing it quite sort of, you know, she's shifting from side to side and all the rest of it. I mean,
I just thought it was funny, really. I just thought, okay, I know the sensitivity towards Quran, obviously, but it happens. I mean, I think the whole point is that it does happen in our cultures. And it depends how you decide to look at it. I mean, if you look at it from the point that they were trying to specifically target Quran, which I don't really think was the case. I think because it's a Muslim family, if the same drama was set up in a Christian family, it would be a Bible. So I didn't think that was offensive, because I try to see, you know, the point of view where anything that I look at it from, would it be the same if another religion, another culture was being portrayed? I think it would be. But for issues like prayer, I think the whole concept is wrong, and that I found it, found that.
And what else in episode 1 did you find to be of concern?
Obviously, very politically sensitive issues of racism came up, and I think again it is quite controversial and sensitive.
Okay,
yes.
well before let's just take another call, and then we will. The caller has dropped. Let's talk about racism. I mean, what part of racism?
There's this part where there's a convert, two converts. I think there's one convert who is a black convert, and the person's meeting him, outside the mosque, and the reaction to that is not very positive. And then, of course, the whole manager, the manager is white, and he's been appointed the manager. How can a white man, convert to Islam, be a manager? I do understand the fact that if it's a comedy and it's a sitcom, so you're trying to portray something, you have to kind of make it a lot more clearer. Yeah. So they have gone to extremes, of him saying things that you wouldn't say, in a normal conversation. I do think racism exists in our cultures. Having said that, I don't think it exists in that context. So,
sure. Okay, sorry, we're just going to take that phone call is back and then we'll carry on. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Jaffar. How are you doing?
Very well. How about yourself?
Alhamdulillah.
Good.
I think it's a fantastic question today on the big question. Alhamdulillah, I tune in a lot, and I think this issue is fantastic that it's being explored to depth. You know, it's a controversial thing. Is it comedy or is it a mockery? When it comes to the side of culture, you know, everybody has a different culture. You know, you can take the mick, you know, have a laugh at different cultures. But when it comes to Islam and religion, any religion, not just Islam, be it Christianity, be it Judaism, you have to be very, very careful, and you have to put limits. You can't
sure.
mock it in the way you would mock culture.
So what did you have? What was the issue with this documentary that you feel is perhaps more of a mockery?
I found several things during the program that did take the mick out of, firstly, the Quran.
Okay.
The way the Quran was handled by the girl, how it was just flicked open without any concern of that this is the book of Allah and
sure. Okay.
this is.
But does that not really happen in real life, brother? I mean, do people not do that? Do young people not, when they're trying to be a bit pretentious in the presence of their parents, actually behave in that manner?
Well, you see, we can't say that, because how do we know how many young people actually read Quran, and how do we know how many people? For where I live, we have, mashallah, loads of madrasas, and we have like Quran school.
Okay, so stay on the line very, very briefly. I just want to bring Sakina Datoo in, because obviously she has a view on this. I mean, this was the part of the documentary. Obviously, the brother felt it was a mockery. It did cause a lot of controversy. When you look at the reviews, this Quran scene did cause offence to many. What's your view on that? I mean, she did treat it in a bit of a...
I do agree, but then again, I think, you know, it all depends on how you view it. For example, I know that when we recite in Quran, we have to have the whole, you know, the ritual. And obviously, you can't touch Quran without wudu, without, you know, there has to be a way you reach it. But the most important really thing, if you think about it, what is Quran? Quran is supposed to be a book that we should be able to more internalize, and it should change our lives. So rather than being oversensitive about how we touch it, you know, how we preserve it, how we read it, we should be really concerned more, in my view. I know people have different views, but in my view, if you really, somebody is making mockery of the content of it or the meaning of it, then I would find it very offensive.
Sure, okay. So, I mean, do you think that's a valid defense for
the sister has a very good point. Mashallah, it's a very nice way of looking at it. But from my view, if we're doing wudu to touch the Quran, wudu is not just to cleanse ourselves, but to cleanse our soul. And it's the way we get ready to, you know, this is the book of God. Okay, I know you think that I might be oversensitive, but when it comes to the word of God, I don't think you can be oversensitive. What is more pure on earth than the word of God? I know that obviously if it was an English version, because, you know, with English books, it's seen as it's okay to just flick it open.
We've only got about 2 minutes remaining before we go to a break, but I do want to just very quickly gauge what else you found controversial about this.
You know, when the Citizen Khan went into the masjid, and how they made the masjid seem as if it's seen as a business type of thing, that people go to the masjid for business, like it's he wanted, I vaguely remember it, but I do remember that he was singing something on the mic, and the mic is used for obviously azan and iqama, and I think he was singing a song, I'm not really sure, but that did, obviously I'm not saying that I'm totally against the program, but we have to take into consideration, is the BBC really for Muslims? Are they really?
So we'll address that question as well. Is the BBC for Muslims, or was this just this documentary this sitcom rather, an underhanded medium to belittle Muslims? But we need to go to a break. You're watching The Big Question live on Ahlulbayt TV. We're discussing the BBC's Citizen Khan. Did it make a mockery, of Islam, or was it simply a comedy and we all just need to grow up, enjoy a sitcom and stop getting, well, it's a storm in a teacup basically, so there's no need for all these heated arguments. Do share your views, 0203 477 842 after the break. Thank you for watching.